What if the man behind one of the world's most iconic brands didn't come from money, didn't inherit a business, and wasn't handed an easy start? What if he came from the projects of Brooklyn, watched his father break down after a workplace injury, and built a billion-dollar company because he never wanted others to feel the way his family once did? This is the story of Howard Schultz, and how one man's pain became the foundation for a coffee empire that changed how the world connects. Howard was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. But not the Brooklyn of today, no trendy cafes or brownstones. He grew up in the Bayview housing projects, a cluster of public housing buildings for low-income families. There were no luxuries, no backup plans, and no role models with fancy degrees or big titles. His father held low-wage, blue-collar jobs his entire life. He worked as a truck driver delivering diapers, then moved to factory work, and even tried his hand at driving cabs. But none of it brought in enough money or dignity. He was often laid off, and he never had benefits or job security. One moment would become etched into Howard's memory forever. He was just 7 years old when his father slipped on a sheet of ice while delivering packages and broke his hip and ankle. There was no workers' compensation, no health insurance, no income. Just silence, frustration, and the sight of a man emotionally crushed by a system that didn't care. Howard later said, "That image, my father sitting at the kitchen table with a cast, his dignity shattered, became the driving force of my life." Growing up with that kind of uncertainty does one of two things: it either defeats you or fuels you. Howard chose the latter. He earned a scholarship to Northern Michigan University, the first in his family to go to college. He didn't have much, but he had drive. He sold blood, bartended, and worked multiple side jobs to stay afloat while studying. After graduation, he started working in sales. He was persistent, charismatic, and slowly made a name for himself. Eventually, he landed a job at a Swedish kitchenware company called Hammerplast. He became their vice president of sales in the U.S., and that's when a tiny client in Seattle caught his eye. This company was ordering large amounts of coffee filters. Curious, Howard decided to check them out. That small company? Starbucks. But back then, Starbucks wasn't the Starbucks we know today. It didn't serve lattes or espresso. It wasn't a cafe. It was a store that sold whole coffee beans and equipment to make coffee at home. When Howard walked into their Pike Place store in Seattle, he was hooked. Not just by the smell of coffee, but by the passion and knowledge of the staff. He felt something. He saw something. He practically begged the founders to hire him. They said no at first. He was too enthusiastic. But eventually, in 1982, they said yes. A year later, Starbucks sent him to a coffee trade show in Milan, Italy. It was there that Howard's vision came into focus. In Milan, coffee wasn't just a drink, it was an experience. Espresso bars lined the streets. They were social hubs. People gathered there, talked, read newspapers, connected. Baristas knew your name, your order, your story. Coffee was about community. Howard came back electrified. He pitched the idea to Starbucks owners. Let's create that experience in America. Let's build a third place between home and work. But the owners didn't agree. They thought it would ruin the brand. They weren't interested in selling espresso drinks. It was a turning point. Howard left Starbucks and started his own company to bring his vision to life. He named it Il Giornale, after an Italian newspaper. It was everything he imagined: fast service, authentic espresso, a warm environment. The response was overwhelmingly positive. But then came the twist of fate. In 1987, Starbucks' original founders decided to sell the company. Howard saw the opportunity, but he didn't have the money. So he pitched his idea, again and again, to potential investors. More than 200 turned him down. Some laughed. Some said it wouldn't work. Americans won't pay $3 for a cup of coffee, they said. Still, Howard pressed on. Eventually, he raised $3.8 million, enough to buy Starbucks. He merged it with Il Giornale, and took the reins of the brand that once told him no. Now it was his. and he was ready to transform it. But Howard wasn't just building a coffee company. He was building a mission. He vowed that no employee would go without dignity, the way his father once did. He became one of the first CEOs in America to offer comprehensive health care not just to full-time staff, but to part-time employees as well. He called his workers partners and gave them stock options. This wasn't business as usual. This was personal. As the company grew, so did its values. Starbucks didn't just serve coffee. It created culture. The stores became places to meet, read, work, or take a pause in your day. They weren't selling a drink, they were selling belonging. And the growth was explosive. From just 11 stores in 1987 to over 30,000 locations worldwide. Starbucks became a global symbol of comfort and consistency. But Howard's journey wasn't linear. There were missteps, controversies, and criticism, everything from union pushback to overexpansion. At one point, he even stepped away from the CEO role, only to return years later when the brand was faltering. Why did he come back? Because to Howard, Starbucks was never just a business. It was his life's mission, to show that a company could be profitable and humane at the same time. His story is proof that where you start does not define where you'll go. That pain can fuel purpose. That rejection is often just redirection. Howard Schultz didn't inherit wealth. He didn't build on someone else's legacy. He created his own, out of grit, vision, and the refusal to let his past limit his future. He once said, "Success is best when it's shared." And that's exactly what he built, a company that shared success with its people, and with the world. So the next time you hold a Starbucks cup, remember, it started in the mind of a young boy from Brooklyn, who watched his father suffer, and vowed to build something better. Not just a business. A movement. A mission. A legacy. If this story inspired you, subscribe to Earnest English for more storytelling-based motivation, personal growth, and mindset lessons.